Ooh, later with Mo Kelly on KFI AM 640.
I said at the beginning of the show, be sure to check on your Gen X friends. We may not be doing all right. The sudden and untimely passing of actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner is probably hitting harder than most. And there are a number of reasons why. The Cosby Show was only on for 8 years, 8 seasons, but it dominated all of television for those 8 years. And let me give you some perspective. TV Guide listed The Cosby Show as, quote, TV's biggest hit in the 1980s, close quote. Adding it, quote, almost single-handedly revived the sitcom genre and NBC's ratings fortunes, close quote. You may not be old enough to remember how big a deal The Cosby Show was. The Cosby Show also spent 5 consecutive seasons as the #1 rated show on television and, along with All in the Family, if you remember that show, is the only sitcom in the history of the Nielsen ratings as the #1 show for 5 seasons. This, in a world largely pre-cable dominance and definitely decades before the word streaming passed anyone's lips. The Cosby Show touched virtually everyone in America in a TV sense during that era. Gen X may not be all right tonight. That's because we collectively grew up with The Cosby Show. Depending on your exact age, you felt some affinity to one or some of the Cosby kids. Maybe you found yourself in similar straits as those fictitious kids did, or you had a similar relationship with your parents as they did. But The Cosby Show changed television, and Malcolm-Jamal Warner was right at the center of it. It defied stereotypes, and it raised the caliber of television sitcoms. Yet in this sordid circle of life, Gen X, which includes me, now has somewhat gotten used to losing the TV dads and moms of that era. In the way most of us have lost our real mothers and fathers. From the departure of all the Golden Girls to Alan Thicke and Growing Pains, Alice's Linda Lavin to George and Wheezy Jefferson, Tom and Helen Willis, Archie and Edith Bunker, Nell Carter, Mrs. Garrett, Ann Romano, Mr. Drummond, Uncle Phil, all gone. But they were our TV parents. But now we're in the age of the kids of those parents leaving us. Our generation, from Luke Perry, Adam Rich, Gary Coleman. It's a long list. And now we add Malcolm-Jamal Warner to that list. But my point is that life is catching up to Gen X in a real and undeniable way. TV was supposed to be our escape as children, and now it seemingly is coming down and just crashing all around us. It wasn't like Malcolm-Jamal Warner was sick. It wasn't like he had a drug problem or was in general declining health. We just woke up this morning and he was gone. Just another reminder that death plays no favorites. He was younger than me. Think about that. Not by much, but he was younger than me. I saw more life on this planet Earth than he did. I grew up seeing myself in the character Theo Huxtable. There was nobody like him on TV that I could personally identify with. That matters to a kid. I couldn't identify with either JJ or Michael Evans of Good Times because I didn't grow up destitute in the projects. I couldn't identify with Arnold or Willis Jackson because I didn't grow up in a penthouse on Park Avenue with a guy who adopted me and was president of a transatlantic company. That's different strokes if you didn't know. And by extension, I didn't grow up with any silver spoon in my mouth. So no, Ricky Schroeder was a definite no for me. The Cosby Show told a story that most mirrored my upbringing and was a staple in my house. And to have had the opportunity to hang out a few times with Malcolm-Jamal Warner as an adult was oftentimes surreal. Like, I'm kicking it with Theo. It was weird. He was always in and around the music industry long before he eventually won his Grammy in 2015. I remember the first time I met him, and this is just off the cuff. We spent like most of the day together. Me and some other friends from the music industry were at the Standard Hotel rooftop party, and he was just as nice as he could be. But those first impressions are the ones that will last forever for me. He was a spoken word and music artist in his own right, having nothing to do with his television notoriety. And as quiet as it's kept, he has worked the most of the original Cosby cast since The Cosby Show, Bill Cosby included. He was always much more than Theo Huxtable or anything Cosby Show related. An extremely private man who kept his wife and child out of the public eye because he knew the perils of his celebrity and social media. We could all take a page out of his book. But be sure to check on your Gen X friends and relatives. Real life is lifing right now, and we may not be okay. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. And I often talk about how, at least in my view, America, which I love dearly, but I can also be honest about it, is presently an unserious country. Unserious because we are unable to pass meaningful legislation. Unserious because the biggest news stories usually have to do with what new congressional or DOJ investigation has been started or documents have been released or something, more than 8 years old to accomplish a whole lot of nothing. For example, Attorney General Pam Bondi announced on Monday that the DOJ has released documents related to the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server, as if it were 2015. And some openly mused, I'm being serious, that maybe the investigation should be reopened. That was Monday. And just in case you weren't sure whether there was enough Hillary Clinton in your news diet, the House Oversight Panel voted to subpoena both Bill and Hillary Clinton over possible links to Ghislaine Maxwell. And just in case you didn't also know, the House Oversight Committee is to ensure the efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability of the federal government and all of its agencies and serve as a check to the president and his actions. President as in sitting president, not the one from 24 years ago. As in sitting president who also has direct ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Let me say it again. We are an unserious nation. We want the truth about Jeffrey Epstein, right? Right? But we just don't want to address the elephant in the middle of the room or the truth staring us in the face. You can subpoena both Bill and Donald, right? But I wasn't kidding. More Hillary, please, because that'll get to the bottom of Jeffrey Epstein and improve the economy. Or not. But I wasn't kidding. On Wednesday, DNI Tulsi Gabbard offered this headline, quote, Russia sat on documents which detailed heavy tranquilizer use by Hillary Clinton, close quote. And I really don't understand this because is the contention that Russia was not actually trying to intervene in the 2016 election because Russia sat on information that was embarrassing or damaging to Hillary Clinton? Or is it just another way of mentioning the phrase Hillary Clinton in 2025 because politics is like music radio? The rule is to play the hits. We are an unserious nation. And all of this is simultaneous to sending Congress home early to avoid having a vote on releasing Jeffrey Epstein files. Because, again, we are an unserious nation with no serious designs on releasing anything meaningful regarding Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, yeah, I know. We released the MLK files because everyone was asking for that. But then again, I told you about those files, those Jeffrey Epstein files. They will never see the light of day. Just semi-chasing new and old conspiracies to nowhere in particular. In that new conspiracy that former President Obama somehow was the architect of a coup to get people to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Know that that is another conspiracy bridge to nowhere. Barack Obama is not getting subpoenaed. He's not getting indicted. He's not getting arrested or imprisoned. How do I know? Because Senator Ted Cruz said so.
That's a hard call.
Look, there would be an argument about it. I'll tell you.
He's not going to be prosecuted for treason. But that's not going to happen.
He's not going to be prosecuted in all likelihood for treason. But where the criminal liability will start is with members of the Obama administration who went under oath before Congress and lied, flat out lied. We know Jim Clapper has lied repeatedly, and that will be the beginning of the investigation.
Okay, so we have another new investigation there. But that's the party in power. That's what they're doing with their power. But Democrats don't think you're going to get off easy. You didn't care about the content of the Epstein files ever. Not now, not then. Maybe a member here or there in Congress like Jamie Raskin. But by and large, y'all Democrats had absolutely zero to say about Jeffrey Epstein. You could have pursued Donald Trump in regard to Epstein during the Biden administration, whether the case was sealed or not. And I know it was sealed until 2024. I mean, you pursued Trump in New York regarding the Stormy Daniels payments. That is the same state as Jeffrey Epstein. You pursued Donald Trump with the classified documents in Florida and D.C. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein did live in Florida, so there's some connection there. I mean, it wasn't like it would have been beneath you Democrats, because something tells me you just are as afraid of the Epstein files as the Republicans. Something as in more than just Bill Clinton. It may not be just Bill Clinton. It could be Bill Clinton and a few other Democrats, but clearly you're afraid of something. But that goes back to what I said. Those files are never, ever coming out. Ghislaine Maxwell, speaking of Jeffrey Epstein, is getting ready to trade a pardon for keeping Trump out of her mouth. Yes, I said it. I meant it. So that's another nail in that coffin. And some Democrats are calling for an investigation like Mark Ronner into the cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
You leave me out of this.
A congressional investigation. You know how stupid that is? That's almost as stupid and unserious as calling for 2 sports franchises to change their names back to racial slurs and racially insulting iconography. So no, Dems, you don't get to claim the moral high ground on Epstein. We had the White House releasing an official statement today, getting into a Twitter fight with a freaking cartoon on Comedy Central. That was just earlier today. But altogether, all that happened just this week. We are an unserious country with an unserious, dysfunctional government. This is what happens when you destroy the lines between reality TV and governance. But we chose this. We elected this, and we continue to ask for more and wonder why nothing ever gets done. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. We've had another mass shooting, this time in the heart of Manhattan, broad daylight. It was brazen. It was pre-planned. And what amazed me was that there wasn't a higher death toll. Thank goodness for that. It could have been much worse. The shooter communicated that he thought he was suffering from CTE from his football playing days. Why he was supposedly self-aware enough to know he was suffering from a degenerative brain disease and clearly in control of his faculties, yet decided with forethought and malice to drive across country and randomly murder people, I don't know. He could have just stayed home and offed himself. I know, that sounds heartless, but that would have been preferential. I know, I shouldn't try to make sense out of nonsense. Although the specifics of this mass shooting are different, the results are largely the same. Innocent people are killed, elected officials offer thoughts and prayers, elected officials call for quote-unquote sensible gun legislation, and others will call for further relaxation of gun laws and nationwide open carry. Nothing ever changes. Nothing will ever change. Here's why. Hashtag not all lives matter. We, as a country, are emotionally comfortable with people needlessly dying. Dying violently. Dying needlessly. Broad daylight even. A friend told me a long time ago about bad relationships. Have you ever been in a bad relationship? I have, arguing all the time, fighting all the time. A friend told me, Mo, when you've honestly had enough, you will end the relationship. You will not put up with the same old over and over again. You will get tired of the fighting and arguing. When you have had enough, you will change things. America has not had enough of watching innocent people, children in school, worshipers in church, people in movie theaters, law enforcement et al. Dying due to gun violence. We have a gun culture that we just can't get enough of in America. And we love that gun culture more than we love life itself. More than our children, more than our mothers, more than our police officers. It's an abusive relationship on the level of Ike and Tina or OJ and Nicole. And I'm not being funny in the least, because it is that abusive, that violent, and that deadly. It's an abusive relationship we can't get out of or get enough of. The political arguments never change. Have you been paying attention? The platitudes never change. The prayers never change. The gun violence hasn't changed. Why is that? Because we haven't changed. Gun violence hasn't changed, and it hasn't changed us. We are numb to it. We are okay with it, and that's the more serious point. We have had more than one generation grow up in a country which is comfortable with watching people walk into public places and try to kill people indiscriminately. Columbine was 26 years ago. There is something wrong with us as a nation. Every country on the face of the earth has to deal with mentally unstable people, suicidal people, homicidal people. But we're the only ones dealing with this level of gun violence. There's no single law which will solve this problem. And honestly, I don't think we want to solve the problem. But we damn sure could do more than what we're doing. We're not doing more because, say it with me, we are okay with mass shootings and innocent people, including children, dying. We are comfortable watching police officers being carried out in body bags like Officer Islam was today. We politically talk about rapists and murderers or terrorists crossing the southern border, but Americans are far more efficient at killing Americans than anyone else. And it's not even close because hashtag not all lives matter. In fact, hashtag nobody's lives really matter, as evidenced by our collective response to mass shootings. And I can't care about America more than America does itself. I can't care about police officers being outgunned and gunned down in cold blood than America does. Because today, and this is just anecdotal, I saw way too many arguments about whether this shooter was carrying an AR-15 or an M4, as if that freaking mattered. We as a country, we've lost the plot. The point of it all should have been always protection of life. For all the political commentary about being pro-life or right to life, we're way too cavalier watching people die in gun violence or lack of health care for that matter. Here's another and lasting uncomfortable truth about those who died in New York City. We, as in America, do not care beyond the symbolic. Because if we actually substantively cared, we would do something to help prevent or lessen the likelihood of these mass shootings ever happening again. Only with gun violence do we throw our hands up and act like we are just powerless to protect one another. We don't do this for airplane crashes, you notice that? We didn't do it for the opioid crisis or even natural disasters. We change laws, guidelines, and federal oversight immediately. And we are ever attempting to improve safety and mitigate loss of life, except with guns. So honestly, save your thoughts. You can keep your prayers. Just leave me out of your political discussions. Just say that their lives don't matter. And the ones who will die in the next mass shooting, which is tomorrow or next week or next month or all three, they don't matter either. Because that is way more believable than saying they do. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. Conservative podcaster and all-around irritating individual to me, Megyn Kelly, no relation, is against a pardon for music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Now, we can agree on that. I am not for any pardon of Sean Diddy Combs. But we don't agree on the reasons why President Trump should not pardon Diddy. Here's what Megyn Kelly wrote on social media. Quote, Trump should not pardon Diddy. He doesn't deserve it. He's a Trump hater. He's a woman abuser. MAGA is already upset over elites seeming to cover for each other. This would not help. GOP struggling with young female voters, most of whom will hate a Diddy pardon. She could have, and I would say she should have ended her post after typing, Trump should not pardon Diddy. Should have just left it at that. But to frame someone as either deserving or not deserving of a pardon and have it based on insufficient fealty or subservience to a political ideology is not only dishonest in regard to the purpose of a pardon in the first place, but it gives away the game. When she followed up with how it wouldn't help Trump politically with young female voters. That's why, in large part, why presidents historically have pardoned people on the way out the door. So it's not a thing about an upcoming election, because it shouldn't be about a future vote. But I know it's 2025 and those days are long gone. And yes, I read President Biden, the Riot Act, on this very show when he pardoned his son. I am consistent. I already know what you're thinking before you even try to think it or say it. There's a podcast. You'll be able to find it. Save your notes. It's not necessary. But I do remember once upon a time, and Twala, I think you remember too because we've been doing this a long time. Not so sure about Mark, but probably Stefan. We remember once upon a time when pardons used to be about at least the pretense of righting some injustice or commuting the sentence of someone who had shown either remorse, it had shown rehabilitation while incarcerated. That's what it used to be like. Now they're just political tools of quid pro quo. But back to Diddy. We, as in Megyn Kelly and me, no relation, again, we agree that Diddy is a woman abuser. That's what Megyn Kelly said. He is a woman abuser. And I quote, but here's the thing about that. He's not the only woman abuser. So is Donald Trump, who was found officially liable of sexual assault of journalist E. Jean Carroll, adjudicated in a court of law, just like Diddy. If being an abuser of women is a bad thing, then that should be a rather easy standard to uphold, and we should be able to hold more than just rap moguls to that standard, right? Right? As for whether Diddy will eventually get his pardon, we know that Trump is wholly transactional. He has to get something out of it to extend the pardon. And a pardon of Diddy or even Ghislaine Maxwell in connection to the Jeffrey Epstein scandal will be a political calculation because there is nothing on principle which suggests that a pardon of either or both is honorable or balancing the scales of justice. Both of them were tried and convicted of their various crimes. Yes, Diddy was acquitted of some, but he was convicted of others. But here's the biggest and most important point I want to make tonight. Victims of sexual assault should be the only consideration, not voters. That's easy enough to understand, right? Can I leave it right there? Is that easy enough? Good. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly.